Hey everybody, what's going on? I'm Austin Harvey Jonas. I am an editor and writer of Better Off Ignorant, as well as an editor for Saturday AM. But you didn't come to talk to me, no. We are here for an animation panel, and I am super excited to do that today. But before we do that, I just want to give a big shout out to the whole audience of SaturdayCon and all of the workers at it. You guys have been completely amazing. And honestly, I can't be happier. With that being said, I want to learn a little bit more about animation. I think you do too. So let's bring up some of the creators of these funky cartoon characters that you love to enjoy. And without further ado, I think that these guys should introduce themselves because I don't think I would be able to do it justice. So whoever wants to go first, take the ball rolling. Go for it.
All right, I think I'll go first. Hi, everybody. I'm happy to be here. My name's Cameron Johnson. I'm a Bahamian 2D traditional animator, and I'm currently working at Tonic DNA. I studied at Sheridan College, and I graduated in 2020, so it's been about a year and a half that I've been in the industry. And I've worked on shows such as The Wildcrats, Central Park, and a bit on Looney Tunes and Arlo the Alligator Boy on Netflix. And yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I'll go next. So I'm Alaine Baybayan. I'm a Filipino-Canadian animator, and I graduated Sheridan College 2021, so just like a year out. And some things I've worked on are Castlevania, Arlo the Alligator. I've done some freelance as well, and currently I'm working as a character designer at Warner Brothers on the new Superman show.
Hi, I'm Dan Turner. I'm an effects artist and supervisor. I've worked in the industry for quite a few years, about 20. Worked for clients like Disney, Netflix, Nickelodeon. Worked on some shows. Final Space Season 2 was one of the newer ones. And a few others. Trying to think of them off the top of my head. Green Eggs and Ham, Cat in the Hat, and some of the others. Osmosis Jones way back when. Yeah, and I kind of live and breathe animation.
That's awesome. I'm so excited to have you guys here. Like, you don't even believe it. I am floored. So, you know what? I have 5 questions for you guys. Take it as you will. Give me as much information as possible, please. Um, and, you know, just go from there. And then we'll go to the audience and see what questions that they have for you. All right.
Awesome,
So,
sounds good.
Cool.
beautiful. My first question is going to be a tough one. What inspired you to go into animation? And maybe we'll start with Cameron since he kind of took the ball rolling with his introduction there.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
My best shot. All right. So, my path to animation, I've always grown up drawing. That's always been the thing that I most enjoyed doing, which was designing characters, making stories. And I started out really enjoying doing comics when I was a lot younger and growing up. And it wasn't until about high school going into college that, I had to decide on what path I wanted to take. And the main reason I chose animation was because it was an art form that I was always very curious about. I grew up with it uh, very much, whether it have been classic cartoons like Tom and Jerry and Looney Tunes, as well as anime and manga. So I think just because of the novelty of it and just my curiosity of it, that's what really pushed me to pursue it. So I'd never animated prior to Sheridan College, and when I finally did, I found I absolutely loved it. And I loved learning about the principles, the foundations of it, and just the possibilities of it was just so unique to me. I think like the biggest thing I remember telling myself about why I chose animation is because I really love telling a story with more than just one image. And so to have a character come to life really embodied the type of storytelling that I want to do. And animation's been doing that for me, and I've been enjoying it since.
Awesome.
Yeah, go for it, Elaine. You're ready.
Awesome. I guess when I first got my start, I was a big reader, so I really liked reading a lot of like young adult fiction stuff like Percy Jackson, like any Rick Riordan property, and that really got me into doing fan art for a good while. So I spent a lot of time on like Tumblr and just like drawing like characters and trying to make them come to life. And it brought also kind of liking anime as alongside that. It sprung up this passion for me to like kind of put like these images in my head onto the screen. So once I got into high school, I started taking drawing a little bit more seriously. Um, just trying to like animate on my own and like figure it out without any like real instruction. And once I finally went to school to Sheridan College in the 2017, that's when I started to really find my bearings with like what I wanted to do, and animation really took hold with with my passions and what my goals were. So ever since kind of like first year or early college, I've always found that of all the things I tried out at school, animation was the thing I really loved most, and just kind of driving off of like the feeling of like seeing your characters come to life. It definitely like motivated me to keep going with it, and that's definitely where I got to where I am today. I'm still making like fan art of stuff and like animations of like other people's creations and whatnot. So that definitely like helped with getting to where I am now. So I credit a lot of that to like all the fiction, all like the fiction that's coming out nowadays, and it's nice to be like on a panel talking about that with like other comics who are probably trying to have that same goal in mind.
Well, fantastic. So, yeah, for sure.
That's cool.
I got into animation through comics as well. Comics really interested me first, so I was a basement dweller. Drawings
I think we all are. I think we all are.
Made a drawing table and started, just trying to draw comics. I was at an American school at one point, and one guy used to be able to draw Spider-Man perfectly. You know, he just, and that, I think that just got the fire going. And that was after that, I just tried to be as good at that as possible. And then got into the animation just from, I think it must have been just the stuff that was on TV at the time, and realizing, oh, if you could draw the comic, you could probably bring it to life as well. And so I started doing that as well. So I changed the desk to a backlit desk so that I could do the animation on it, and start same basement, just doing different work in there. And I had a Super 8 camera that I could shoot pencil tests with, and started getting into it. And at the time, I didn't know how I could develop that into something else. So my parents helped me to direct me towards Sheridan College. I mean, at first I went to a night course in animation where this one guy told us, he introduced us to the illusion of life and things like that. So that helped keep doing the animation itself. But then he also knew about Sheridan College, so he mentioned Sheridan College, and then I looked into it and went to Sheridan. And at the time that I was there, it was kind of a bit of a renaissance, because the teachers they had there were from all different aspects of drawing. So you had somebody who was into boat engineering and things like that, teaching you layout or character drawing as well. But you also had the guy who did Hollywood storyboards, had worked on Raiders of the Lost Ark and things like that. So it was just this great confluence. And then, Sheridan taught me the ropes. And then after that, I sprang into the industry, I guess. Ended up at Sullivan Bluths and a couple other places after that. So,
all right, awesome.
Wow. Ever since.
I actually want to circle back to what you guys are talking about, because some of you mentioned like Sheridan College, and that seems to be the place. So I actually did want to, that really links into my next question about like, what is the process that you had to go through to become an animator? So like, not even just schooling, but like afterwards, maybe the personal courses that you had to go through and what you personally did during that time. And maybe what you had to do to get hired. So something along those lines. And feel free to take it away. I won't pick on Cameron anymore.
Finally.
Voluntold.
Okay, well, not everybody speak at once.
I could go, I guess. Well, so I guess like in terms of my experience, I guess that's the best way I could answer the question is definitely having a body of work beforehand was definitely like the way to get out the door. So definitely putting yourself towards doing animation, like finding out the principles and like testing them out yourself. Like working towards actually being able to understand that is definitely something that every animator should acquire to. And a lot of the opportunities you definitely, at least starting out, you definitely have to reach out to them yourself. In the case of like me, my first job in animation, I worked for a YouTuber named Domix. He's like one of the anecdotal YouTubers that like do like kind of like stories of his life, and he like does little animations of them, and that was a very fun start to get into the industry. It gave me the experience. I was able to like kind of learn in a very like controlled environment like how the pipeline kind of works, even if it was just for a YouTuber. It definitely applies to a lot of experience I have nowadays. And something that something about it is like it's not the most conventional first job for an animator. Like there's not many cases where you'll be animating for like a YouTuber or like someone online, or like mainly you'd want to go for a studio. But from that experience, I definitely realized that like a lot of these opportunities can be very niche, and you never know where you're going to find them. I also managed to find this like this is going to sound like a really big ad for Sheridan after all the things that we're saying about it, but
For sure.
I managed to find the job through Sheridan on the job board, and I wouldn't expect to have gotten a job through there. So taking those steps and trying to look for like these kind of opportunities, being creative about where you can find work is definitely a way to go. There's advertising, there's YouTubers, there's a lot of Twitch streamers are looking for animators to do indents and emotes. A lot of the jobs will be, starting out at least, they'll be very niche, but it'll help you build the experience and portfolio to get the ones that you want moving forward, the full-time ones at studios and at the productions that you want to be working on. So I definitely recommend anyone who's first starting out, wanting to get into animation or trying to get their project up and running, to give it a go. See about putting your like content to life, and then just trying for opportunities out there to get a taste of like what the real industry is like. Right. So you never know where it'll be. Yeah, that's kind of how I answer it, at least. Hopefully awesome. That's it.
Anyone want to follow up?
I guess I'm actually I find what you said really interesting, just about the different opportunities. Because I guess for me personally, that's something, being fresh to animation, I wasn't aware of like what the opportunities were. So I think like a big thing about my experience was I had a certain idea of what being an animator would be like, but once I actually got that work experience, and even going through the program, that really gave me a more informed idea of like what actually goes into it. So like starting out at Sheridan, we learned a lot of the fundamentals. For our class, for our first year, we had to animate on paper. And so that changed, I think, for other years. But I got my first taste of using the light table, shooting the drawings and putting it together. It was just such an interesting process. So that really helped build the fundamental skills for me. And just throughout the program, we got a taste of all the different areas in the pipeline, whether it be layout, whether it be character design or animation. So it's not just specifically animating that you learn. It just helps broaden the scope of what you're actually getting yourself into. And so my first industry experience was in third year when I did my internship. And I did that at Brown Bag Films, 9 Story in Toronto. And that's how I got to work on the Wildcrats. So that was my first official industry experience. And that just taught me a lot. And even just taught me about the different ways that or the different types of animation. Like I'd never really done rigged animation prior to that. We did the course, but my background was traditional. So going into rigs, it's like, okay, it's a whole broad scope of different animation fields you can get into. So, and yeah, I think that's the main thing is like, there's a real beauty in fact that there's so many different areas you can go into. And so no one experience would be the same. It's all going to be different depending on which path you take for it.
I just wanted to piggyback. It's funny you mentioned the traditional thing. I think our class was the last class ever to do like hand-drawn animation.
Really?
Yeah.
In your first year?
Yeah, we did in first year. We paid like $1 million for like the animation paper and like the pegs and whatnot. And then and then the next year they're like, nope, you're all doing digital now. That's the new wave. I was like, oh man, that's a lot of money that we put into paper that we never use again.
I had like my first assignment was like this stack of paper of the balls. So it was interesting. Yeah, I'm sure, Dan, you could talk a lot about that. Like you started out in paper.
I was one of those teachers that forced people to use it.
It was you.
Well, in my case, it was I think it was for the compensation pan. We had to do a cycling bird character at one point, and the compensation pan was when you had the bird flying on the spot as if the camera's tracking it, and then the background's moving, and then you had to work out the move under the camera of the bird stopping and landing on the background. And so because it's all tactile stuff, it's different things you do with the pegs to get that to look like a nice smooth camera move. So yeah, everybody had to do it traditionally and then also on After Effects. And it just helped to bridge that thinking there, that you'd see where it originates from. I mean, I've got a book of like old Disney camera and layout tricks from like 1940s, and every once in a while I'll still go back to those because it's like, okay, and if talking about anime, if you look at some of the stuff that Miyazaki's layout tricks, he was definitely looking at those, some of the Disney stuff, because they do a lot of, because at the time that they wrote those notes, they were trying to economize some of their animations, so they were trying to come up with clever tricks so that you didn't have to do as much animation. So things like, I know if you've seen on I can't remember if it was Kiki, when you have a streetcar coming over the hill, and it's multiple levels all doing this, right? But they're all timed just like a live action shot, and you can see the trolley car coming up over the hill. That's just clever camera work. That's clever manipulation of your artwork. So, and that now, because of digital, that's completely free. You can do anything you want. Back then, you were kind of limited because you were on a physical camera. So you wouldn't, you could do certain things, but past a certain point, you'd have to, either come out with another peg bar to continue this one or do something. So yeah, on the question though, the things that you would look at to other than animation is just anything. I mean, if the broader your experience with absolutely everything, photography, painting, whatever you can absorb, because as soon as you're doing that, you're going to find that affects how you think about animation itself as well, and what you want to do with it. For what I did at Sheridan, we had because I went into effects, we had kind of a more technical aspect to it. So we had to take almost like a technical illustration course as well. So that was part of that part of the course, and it was, how do you describe it? It was educational as well, because instructional film. That was sort of what it covered. So you would break down how to show a 2-cycle engine with diagrams that animated, and that was part of the course.
All right. What was that saying that your wife used to tell me when I was younger? Artists are the biggest cheaters of all.
Yes.
And I love it. Love it a lot.
Yeah.
I think that definitely leads into my next question, though. Just and you can talk about your personal experience with this, but you can also talk about a generalized version if you want of just like how long on average does it take to make a piece of animated work, and if you want to talk about a little bit of your actual works that you've done, then you can go for it.
What about Dan start this time?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, let's pick on Dan.
Okay, this is where it comes down to which era do you want to talk about? If we're talking about now, you can, as Cameron already mentioned, there's different ways to do animation. There's rigged animation, there's drawn animation, there's combinations of those. Like you've seen a lot of shows where there's rigged animation, but what happens is there's a lot of special poses. So the hands are rigged for general stuff, but there's occasions where an artist will have to go in there for some of the scenes and actually draw new hands and get things working on the shot. The thing that I mentioned as well with manipulation, some things you can do without having to animate everything. Animation itself, especially for effects, it's very pattern based and time consuming. You try to come up with ways to make that maybe a little less time consuming, and some of those newer methods you can use combinations of those with it, so that you might be animating the lava, the shape of the lava, and in your roughs everything is worked out so the movement is animating properly, and you've got your acting in that lava shot. But when you want to do the patterning inside of it, that's either going to be drawn again as a pattern inside of it that you have to follow up with in-betweens and everything and clean up, or you can do a manipulated pattern inside of it. And Harmony lets you do that sometimes as well. Like their tools for that have gotten a little better now. So, and that can be, oh my gosh, procedural as well. Like you can generate a pattern in another program and put it in there if you want. You can mat it in. So yeah, there's a lot of options. Your problem now is to figure out, okay, no, this is a hand-drawn shot. I want it hand-drawn all the way through. And if you're going to do that, it's going to take you a week at least, right? Because now you don't have an assistant and an in-betweener.
Yeah.
That used to be division of labor, so that you could get the stuff out quicker. There are still studios that work that way. That's the full traditional model. And that was a good training model as well, because you could start as an in-betweener and work your way up to animation. And because you're working on scenes that have already been done, you can see how an animator has dealt with it.
Awesome.
Yeah, I actually want to add on that, because I think an important thing to always consider, like when we're asking how long it takes, is like Dan says, what method are you using for it? So like when we refer to rigs, we're talking about in Toon Boom Harmony or in Flash, the puppet style animation where all of the pieces of the character are already pre-drawn in different poses or ways. So it's more so manipulating those pieces so that it animates on the computer. And there's a lot of systems and parts of the program that can animate it automatically, or if you have one pose here and one pose here, the computer can put the in-betweens for you. So from my work experience, if we're talking about in the industry and when they're working on productions, they might have certain quotas, as in like how much work you're expected to do each week, usually based on that style. So for rigged animation, it can be, you might be expected to complete 30 to 40 seconds of animation a week if it's a puppet based animation, versus traditional hand drawn on the computer. It might be 15 to 20 seconds a week, or maybe less, just because there's more work involved with that. So that's what my experience has usually been when it comes to how long it takes to do the animation. And I guess depending on what you do, you might find you want to gravitate to one or the other. I personally get a little tired drawing the same head 50 times when it's traditional. And sometimes I look back longingly at the rigs and it's like, oh man, I can come back someday. But yeah, that's what my experience has been.
Yeah, I guess like from my experience, because I personally work more towards like action animation, and anyone who's like a fan of anime is probably wondering like how long that takes. Um, I I find a lot of it does come down to what you're working with, design wise,
Right.
how much is moving around, what type of action it is. Because action is a very interesting case where it could be very complicated, and some of the shots that are very impactful could also be like very like easily or like quickly done. Like uh there's a lot of economy that comes alongside action animation. So I guess if I were to put it at an average, I like to, if you were trying to finish like a complete animation, like cleaned, colored, composited and whatnot,
Right.
I like to think of it as like a 35-40% effort towards the roughs and then 60% towards the finesse towards the end.
Mhm.
In the case of doing like action animation, um, you for my personal process, I like to work very roughly and quickly, and I like to spend like one day kind of like fleshing out all of the action. One day meaning like 8 hours, say if it was like a work week. So you could spend good time like blocking out all your key points, kind of working through the motion, and um, the if you're kind of working in this on your own, and you could take a lot of the effort towards finishing the animation and cleanup like will probably take a lot longer. So because you're looking towards going through all the animation you did in 8 hours and then finessing it, and that could be like several days. If I were to put an average, when I was working on Castlevania, I would do around 8 no, maybe like 8 to 12, 15 seconds, like 8 to like 15 seconds per 2 weeks.
Mhm.
And the designs are very heavy, so it was a lot to go through. But that was towards just roughing out everything to put all those details in. So I guess that's kind of how I'd answer it. It's very hard to like answer this type of question, but to just kind of put it perspective in like the anime terms, like you're looking towards like almost like a 10-second average per week trying to like figure it out.
Right. And what you brought up was really important. Like when we say it takes maybe 30 to 40 or 15 to 20 seconds, that doesn't really include all of the cleanup. That's usually
Yeah.
just the rough animation
Yeah.
itself. So, and sometimes my superiors, like the senior animators, they might say, if it takes you 8 hours to do rough animation, it'll take an additional 8 hours just to do the cleaner drawings for it,
Mhm.
if not more. And
Yeah.
when you compare a show like Castlevania to what I've worked on, which is like the Bob's Burgers Central Park style, big difference in time that it would take to work on those stuff.
Yeah. You also have to consider like the shortcuts you're taking too.
Yeah.
Like when we were working on Castlevania, I did a little bit of cleanup towards the end of the production, and some artists just work really clean right off the bat. They can like skip a lot of the cleanup aspect just because their roughs are so clean, and that does take a lot of experience. But like they're doing the stuff that I do in like 40 hours and like uh, in like 20 or less than, and that's ridiculous.
Right.
So yeah,
Right.
it's very tricky to answer.
Wow, yeah. Well, I mean, I don't want to brag, but like, in high school, I did a flip notebook kind of animation, and that only
Oh,
took me an hour.
well, this
And
guy.
And
all right, all right, you're
in
gonna take the
my
jobs away from us.
yeah, sorry, well, maybe I'm just hidden talent. All right. Well, jokes aside, um, I actually really want to know this question too. So, because you guys have worked on a variety of things, um, what would you say is your favorite thing that you've worked on? And then, like, like some of you worked on like really cool shows like Bob's Burgers and Castlevania and Disney movies. So, like, I know it might be really hard to pick one, but like maybe even just pick a scene out of that cool stuff that you guys have done, and just tell me a little bit about what your favorite thing to work on there was. And who do I have to pick on this time?
Click on me.
All right, go for it, Cameron.
I really enjoyed my experience on Arlo, the Alligator Boy, specifically the movie. I also worked on the TV series, but the movie was really special because that was my first real job graduating, and my first experience doing hand-drawn animation in the industry. Because the idea was, or at least what we thought was, graduating, it's mostly going to be rigs. But after getting that job and even working at Tonic, where I'm at now, it's at least telling me that there's still a bit of hand-drawn animation that's still going on. But I really enjoyed Arlo because, first time with these new characters, I grew really attached to them. I, for whatever reason, always got like the really sad scenes of Arlo, like just drawing him sad constantly. So I don't know why I just got so attached to drawing a sad Arlo the whole time. That was the majority of my scenes when I think about it. So I don't know. I just really got attached to that character when I actually got to experience, working with a character that wasn't mine and just bringing that to life.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Arlo was so much fun. I got to work on the show alongside Cameron, so
yeah.
I understand how you're feeling about him. But if I were to pick a favorite, that's tricky. Animation wise, it definitely would have to be for Castlevania. I'm happy I got to be a part of the production because the things they're doing at Powerhouse is a lot of fun, and the things they're going to be doing moving forward is going to be great too. So being able to kind of be a part of that was definitely meant a lot to me. I got a chance to work on the Trevor, like a little bit of Trevor. I did like a fight sequence at the finale episode, and that was definitely a lot of fun. They gave me a little bit of freedom with how to go on the action, and I'm glad I kind of was able to get that chance to like just put my foot in the door and give it a whirl with these characters. They're very complicated to draw, but I definitely did have a fun time, no matter how long it took to draw his his like details.
Oh gosh, I can only imagine. That sounds crazy. Oof. All right, Dan, you're up.
Oh, I got to mention an old one, I guess. Brain Dead 13. That was probably my most kind of fulfilling job, just because there was so much involved in it. Because we had to set a studio up from scratch to do it.
Man.
That was an old ReadySoft game that Dave Cannell and a bunch of other, I think we ended up with about 30 artists on it. And that was hand-drawn, but digital ink and paint. And digital, even the backgrounds were hybrids, because the backgrounds were done tonally, scanned in. So they had, like a really nice pencil render of the background. And then that was treated as paint in Photoshop and turned into more of a painted look. So it was a real hybrid of a bunch of things. So we had to scan a lot of drawings to put all the animation into the computer and ink and paint it there. So that was good. I also liked working on Princess and the Frog and the Winnie the Pooh one behind there. Winnie the Pooh, I got to actually do cleanup character in between and clean up on. And that was just weird because it's characters you're so familiar with and you're drawing them.
Right.
It's like, oh, you don't want to mess up.
I was about to say, like, if you didn't mention Disney, I didn't want Mickey to come at my door right now and be like, "Oh, what's going on? You're not talking about Disney?"
Kicks it down.
Yeah, just knocking on, trying to barge on in. Well, that's fantastic, though. Honestly. Okay, so this is going to be my last question, and then we'll go to the audience questions, which I assume that there's going to be a lot. So. Is there anything that you guys can tell us about any upcoming animation that you're currently working on? Some secrets? Something to get excited about?
I can't say much on my end. I will say that it's pretty big and it's hand drawn.
Hell yeah.
As the most disappointed I've ever been.
But see, just take that disappointment, and then when it comes out, you're just going to be, he told me this so vaguely, but here it is.
All right, you're setting the bar. You're setting the bar.
With what I'm working on, it's really fun to be working on Superman. It's a take on Superman I've never really seen before because it's really inspired by anime. Like every time at work, I'm like putting stuff out, and we're like, no, you have to reference this anime, you have to reference this one and this one. I'm like, okay, I don't mind that. Like I'll give Superman a little anime twirl to it. So yeah, I hope that like when it eventually comes out, people will see the inspirations that we took it from, and because there's been a lot of love put into this show. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's a good homage to like all the things people kind of love about Superman and love about like anime too.
Well, that's exciting. Oh my gosh. Dan, the man?
Well, there's the Green Eggs and Ham season 2, which is again all drawn again. So that's we worked on that for quite a while. It's there's a lot in it. it's I don't know if maybe Alaine and Cameron can attest to this, but it's especially with Castlevania as well, and that the production quality on a lot of these shows for streaming for Netflix and other shows it's just climbing. It's climbing like crazy right now.
Absolutely.
So you can end up working on a show that they want almost a feature quality on for those shows, but of course the scheduling is not really necessarily there for them. So you have to work out ways to be able to deliver that. But Green Eggs is just going to look amazing just because full hand drawn is not, we haven't seen a lot of it. It was funny because one of the guys on one of the animation sites mentioned that Bob's Burgers, the movie, is the first Disney film, fully hand drawn Disney film to come out in 10 years.
Okay.
Yeah, when you technically think about it.
But we all know it's rigged, so well, not all of it. I think there's a lot more drawn in that one because it's a feature. But.
Right.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm excited. I gotta be honest. So that's my personal questions, but let's see if there's any questions from the audience. And I don't know if I do this. Oh, there we go. All right. Here we go. Okay, so how long did it take you to get the hang of things like the 12 principles of animation?
There's definitely like a instinct that comes after a lot of practice. It really depends on how much you're practicing this stuff as well. Luckily a lot of the principles kind of go hand in hand to each other. So it's not like you're going like principle 1, 2 years learning this one principle next. Like it's not like that, luckily. So definitely will take you a while of practice, but like give it your all. Like could be a year, could be like 2 years. Who knows how long it'll take for you to get it. but as the more you do it, the more you'll get the hang of it. So it's hard to put a time limit on it or anything.
Yeah. I personally think it's one of those things where you just keep growing. Like you never truly perfect it. You just keep getting better at it. So I guess in the 4 years that I've been at Sheridan, it really helped to sharpen my idea of the principles. But the reality is, even with the shows that I'm currently working on, like I have to constantly incorporate it in ways that I hadn't done before. So even if you get the hang of all 12, have you gotten the hang of all 12 together, or 4 out of the 12 used together in a certain way? Um, but I will say, like, one thing that helped me improve certain ones was, again, like having different ones incorporated, but just finding ways to challenge yourself with it. Like my thesis involved a dog that had dreadlocks, and so that really had to incorporate drag and follow through along with squash and stretch, and he was dancing at the same time. So it's just like once you have all that together, you're going to pick up on a lot of things eventually as you're doing it.
All right. Dan, you want to comment?
Yeah. It's yeah, I think it's practice. It's also kind of, you have to keep going back and reminding yourself of what they are as well. And also, I'm sure you're the senior animator and your supervisor will also bring
they'll
it up.
remind you.
Yeah.
We're always doing polishing passes on effects as well for timing to anticipate maybe some effects a little bit more, or for our stuff though, it's more, I guess, more physics, I guess, a lot of the stuff, unless you get a hero shot that's magic effect or something like that, where it's more of an acting effect. Right. So for us, it could be hang time on particle or water breakup and things like that. And not as much of the acting principles, unless that's part of you're doing a water monster or something. Then suddenly you gotta start thinking more about the acting.
Gotcha. Okay, cool, awesome. Another question. Oh, okay, here we go. All right, for animation, what is one of your personal struggles / personal favorites of the process?
Lack of sleep.
Is that your favorite, or is that the struggle?
I don't know. You go ahead, Cameron.
Yeah, I think for me, I personally have difficulty animating quickly. That's something that I've noticed, since starting animation. I tend to be very detail oriented from the get-go. So while things may turn out pretty clean and look good, it just takes me very long. So that's one of the things that I'm personally improving on, which is to be more rough at the beginning stage. But I think ultimately my favorite part of it is really just seeing it done, just seeing everything come together and seeing how it moves. And just when you get a really satisfying timing, I think that's what really sells it for me. Is just having it come together and seeing like, yeah, I spent all this time on this and it came to life. Like it's fulfilling when that happens.
Awesome.
Yeah, like I'd have to say a personal struggle is definitely along the same lines of yours. Like I find after getting more experience, kind of like getting more of a taste for like different types of animation, you start to really nitpick your work a lot more, and I'm starting to feel like I've been doing that a lot more nowadays. It's reassuring though to know that I was talking with a friend the other day that a lot of really good artists kind of go through the same case of like really nitpicking their work, not feeling very happy about it, and it felt good to know that there's like a lot of really good artists in the animation industry that like probably like super hate their work. Like if you have a hero in animation, and like you love their stuff, there's a good chance that they're probably super critical of it as well. So kind of having that, like it's nice to know that it's not alone. You're not alone having that feeling. That's a personal favorite of mine too, I guess, if I were to put it that way. I would say another personal favorite when it comes to animation is a kind of like putting a lot of more finesse and accuracy to it in your own ways. Like, I'm a big fan of using different resources to get to the product I want. So if I can like problem solve in one program and bring it towards another, that's always really satisfying. If it means like recording reference of yourself, like doing flips on your couch or whatever, like to get to the solution that you want, that's always like a really nice obstacle to go over. So yeah, that's what I would say.
All right. Okay. I'm going to take personal as the sleep thing, Dan. Yeah.
Well, a really losing track of time, I guess, is more what I'm thinking. It's
Gotcha.
when you're in the zone so much. More probably, well, you get it in cleanup as well, but I mean more in rough animation probably, when you're so focused that you kind of wake up out of it after you've done it. You go, okay, that looks good to me, but then you show it to somebody else, and if somebody else realizes, yeah, that's looking really good, that's probably that's the eureka moment for me.
That's awesome. All right. Okay. Do we have another question? Oh, what are your preferences in tools and or software for animation? Okay, I'm glad this question came up because I was going to ask it regardless. All right, go.
All right. I'm most experienced with Toon Boom Harmony for animating. I've also started to learn Flash, prefer Toon Boom. And I'm also, trying to experience other softwares. Like, I think I might try to look into Blender, see what that's like, and how it could be mixed together between the two. So, Toon Boom is the most for me.
Gotcha.
I've definitely wanted to get a good taste of like different animation programs because, like I said before, I like problem solving with like different programs and seeing which program does best. In terms of animation, I definitely would say Toon Boom is very efficient. I would not put out other options like Flash or Clip Studio Paint out there just yet, though, because there's definitely like very good merit in those programs. Like Clip Studio Paint is probably growing a lot more for me nowadays. You're getting a lot more like drawing options with it, because like it's like drawing in Photoshop, but you could animate on it very efficiently, which is really neat for a program. And alongside what you said earlier, Blender has definitely been like my bread and butter nowadays when it comes to creating stuff. In the case of like people doing webcomics, people who want to do like their own animations or films, Blender is something you should definitely learn. Like you learning how to use it to your advantage. Like you can make sets for your characters, and then you can like reuse it over and over again and paint and like export it and paint over it, and like you could export line work and adjust it to your liking, and that's so powerful, and that's going to save you so much time to create like better work in the future. So Blender has been a really good tool for like cheating the process a little bit just to make things more efficient, and I definitely recommend anyone to learn it.
Awesome.
Yeah. Harmony mostly for productions, I guess. I think the reason it's made so much headway is it's got a similar production flow to CG as well, right? It's asset based. It has a node view that you can hook up like Houdini or those programs, but it's a 2D based compositor. So yeah, it's very good at what it does. But yeah, I've been doing a bit more on Blender as well because their 2D grease pencil aspect has been developed quite a bit in the last little while. So it's getting really interesting what can be done on it. And it also has a geometry nodes thing coming in, which that would be very good for effects. So It would almost be like having Houdini inside of Blender. So being able to control geometry in a node-based setup. I've used it before for like a rocket launch scene. I did a mock-up of some expanding, rocket smoke when the rocket takes off and it hits the ground, and the smoke the smoke hits the ground and curls outwards. I actually did that in 3D, and then you can output line art of that into Harmony, and then paint it just like any other Harmony element.
It's interesting.
So yeah, it's worth looking into.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Here we go. How do you advocate for yourself in the animation industry? Might be a loaded question. So let's see.
Advocate, interesting. Like,
Yeah. Do you go and jump out and be like, "It's me, Alaine. I animate."
like kind of, yeah. Like you definitely have to. It's a lot easier nowadays because a lot of the industry is finding work like online, so it's definitely super easy to like fake it till you make it and fake that confidence out there. In terms of advocating for yourself, it's definitely about putting your needs first above a production, if that makes sense. Like, I guess if you mean advocating for yourself in terms of like getting good pay and benefits is what you're talking about, that's definitely something that you will grow and have to practice on, and it helps to get a lot of like second opinions when you're kind of going through this process. Like, say you're getting hired and like you're talking like wages and whatnot. I find I always find it a good idea to like talk to a friend who's in the industry, kind of get their opinion on like how to like answer certain things, how to negotiate, or what if this feels fair to them as well. Is a good way to start to get like a bearings for what your standard is. Definitely, it's definitely hard to like. It's definitely hard to like feel like you have to go through all of this alone. But I definitely advocate for getting like someone else there to kind of help you along the road with dealing with like these companies, because a lot of the time they will try to get like the cheapest option, or they're gonna try to make it like cheap for them because that's kind of their priority. So yeah, and definitely like get some second opinions when it comes to dealing with this stuff.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I was just a little stuck on the word advocate. I wasn't sure if they were meaning, like you said, Alaine, but I think those are really good points just for anyone, planning to get into the industry, just to consider. Really, I think more than anything, whether you mean advocating for yourself as in taking care of yourself while in the industry, or if you mean like promoting yourself, definitely connecting with other people who are in the industry, or at least people like yourself if you're interested in going into the industry. Just, it's really important to connect with other people and just have a dialogue about, what are the expectations when you go into it, and what are people looking for, and so forth. Because I think more than anything, like realistically, the animation industry is pretty small. It is going to be determined by like who you meet and who you know, especially when it comes to getting jobs or being referred jobs or positions. So really just make an active effort to network or just really connect with people where you can, especially online. Posting your stuff online does help, even if it's just stuff you've done for work or personal projects. I find personal projects are a really good way for especially recruiters to pay attention to your work.
Just realize that your experience, even if you're 8 out of school, that's when the time starts. So just realize that as you're putting in that time, that you're worth more. you're getting used to a pipeline. You are acquiring all the knowledge to be able to work on that production properly, and put a value on that, because it will change going from studio to studio, but the fact that you've acquired that knowledge is very, very worth advocating. And there is so much demand for shows right now that it's worth realizing your worth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's very important. I think those are very important points. Like, definitely respect yourself, know your worth. And that goes for not even just animators, but artists as well, just in general,
Mm-hmm.
like, taking commissions and stuff like that. So I think that's very, a very key point for young people to know. Okay. Any other? Oh, here we go. I can't even get it out. What do studios / businesses look for in animation reels? And that's by Felix Schmittick from YouTube.
This is definitely it's definitely a case by case basis as well. If you're actively applying towards a job, they're going to be looking for like specifics in relation to that job. When at my current job, we've been taking like freelancers every now and then. But generally, we will look for people who already have a style very close to what we're looking for. So we're looking for people who can like do dynamic art, who can draw like with consistency, can draw with like anatomy in mind. So in the case of you applying for a job, you'll definitely want to keep the employer's interest in mind and what they're looking for. But I guess in the case, this is kind of like a separate case. Like, say you're trying to look for work that's along the lines of what you want to do. Making content that you want to do is kind of like the best way to get the work that you want to do. I found a lot of my work from just posting animations online, posting like the art that I like to do, and employers like look at that and they're like, oh, she likes doing that stuff. Let's hire her for that because we also like doing that stuff. It's a good motto to have when you're making anything, that like you want to put the work out there that you like doing, and you want to let employers know that you like doing this work. And if you're both having fun, you're both gonna enjoy what you're doing. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure I could have said it any better. I think that really comes down to it. If you're applying to certain places, you definitely want to just look at the stuff that they currently do, because you can have the best reel in the world, like crazy fight scenes and everything, but if it's for a preschool show, it might not be a good fit. So really just look at what they're looking for and see where your stuff fits, because like Alaine said earlier, like she had done YouTube animations in the beginning. There's always going to be some kind of niche for the stuff that you enjoy. So really just try to focus in on that.
Yeah, is that like that you specifically customize your portfolio to them, or your reel, or?
I think it depends. If you maybe don't have a large body of work, it's usually a case where you would determine what you're strongest at. So if you are stronger at doing rigged animations and you see that they're looking for a certain style and you're good enough as an animator to work in that style, create a reel that works with things close to that and apply to that place. But if you currently have a body of work that you've already built up with a specific style, then it might help to find places that can accept that style a lot easier. But that is a good question. So if you currently don't have something built, just be specific with what you actually want to focus on and maybe what's in demand too. Because you don't want to do something that's too niche either and lowers your options. And never, I feel like, don't take opportunities for granted, even if it's not the style that you're, accustomed to. Like as an animator, I think it's really important that you can adapt to different styles. So be open to what opportunities you're presented to and just, get the most out of it.
Yeah.
I think what you've mentioned there, it also might be that the the size of the studio and what you're applying for can also affect that. They might, because sometimes the reels that come in would be for one thing, but if you do have some breadth on, you have some different styles and different drawing on your reel, that it might not get you the job for that job that you applied for, but sometimes it does come up at another opportunity at a larger place, that they go, oh, well, we didn't like this animation style, but we noticed that you do design work as well, and you included that in your portfolio or whatever, and you'll get hired for that instead.
Oh, cool. Neat. All right. I mean, it's cool to get like that contrast, because I know, like, Dan, you're more of a seasoned animator, and we have two more fresh animators here, so it's like kind of cool to see like the differences there, just with how things have been going. Do we have another question?
Oh.
Okay. I'm not getting another question, but I do have one for you guys. Oh, okay. Never mind. I lied. For Alaine, what was it like working on Ross Draw's Nima trailer? It was amazing. Monitor Comics from YouTube.
Yeah, that was a great time. That is a case of like a more like, I guess, niche opportunity. It all started because Ross just hit me up on Twitter one day asking about getting this animation done. We've been talking about it, or he had started about a year prior to its release. I worked on it while I was at school, and we got like other animators on board. We did compositing. He did all the backgrounds, and it was a great time. It was really cool because it's kind of exactly the body of work I wanted to do. I would love to just have a little studio and make AMVs for original characters all day. Like, that sounds like the dream, and getting to do that for someone else's vision was absolutely a good time. But yeah, it was really interesting kind of being like a little director for this, because I got to work with a bunch of my friends. I got to put my foot in a little bit of everything. So we did like designs, we did compositing, I had to do like animation, or I had to like help out my friends who weren't really familiar with the anime style and kind of like give them a little platform to go off of. And another cool thing was just like, it's like making a film, you're going to gain so much experience so quickly, and having that was a really good time.
Gotcha. That's awesome. All right. Do we have another question? Oh, okay. When I think about animation, I think that it might take a long time. How long does one episode roughly take?
22 minutes episode?
Yeah, I guess that's what they mean. Yeah, like a 22-minute episode. So when I was a kid, I heard that it was like 6 months to make an episode. So I feel like that's wrong. So maybe let's break this stigma.
It's not entirely wrong, I think.
Yeah.
Because a production can usually be 6 months, but they work on like all the episodes usually simultaneously sometimes. So if you have like a team of 16 animators doing about half a minute of animation, 30 seconds a week maybe, then within 3 weeks all the animation might be there, and then it just goes on to different stages. So all the animation might be going on, and while those animations are done, the cleanup takes over and the background artists take over. So the whole pipeline just kind of flows over the course of that 6 months. I can't really say. Maybe you two could speak on whether you know how much like one episode would be, though. That's as far as I know.
It's not too far off with what you said too. Like,
Right.
Considering like, if we're talking about anime, like there's a lot of shortcuts. Like there's going to be stills, there's going to be like shots that you're not fully animating.
You cheaters.
Yeah, like the cheating parts of it, the filler. That's definitely something you have to account for.
You evil masterminds.
So that's definitely like, it's not too far off. If you're putting like a lot of, or if you're kind of going towards more like a more a particular segment of the episode you want to put more animation towards, 6 months is not too far off. But it'll definitely, I would definitely say more than, depending on like how you're like trying to achieve, or what you're trying to achieve style wise. Like I guess for reference, like Nima was a minute and a half. I want to say minute and a half. That took like a year. And if you're doing all of this by yourself, definitely not 6 months. If you're doing 22 episodes, like 22 minutes.
That's important to distinguish. Yeah,
that's gonna be a lot of work. So.
Yeah, if it's a series or production, then you also have to worry about clients.
Right.
So what Cameron was saying is yes, but then also how many different revision passes are there?
That's important.
Yeah.
Because you could finish all the footage, and then once the client sees it, they send it back to say change this, and that. So yeah.
Well, I guess we got another question here real quick. What's the best way to break into the industry? And I believe it said make connections. Break into the industry when you don't have any connections. And that's from Haryana on YouTube.
There's definitely like, now with like the internet, there's definitely a lot of ways to go about it. Personally, like if you have the luxury for it, I found school was a great place to find connections. Like these are people you're going into the industry with together, and you're also like, in like my case and your guys' case, we got taught by people who are in the industry at Sheridan. So that was a good starting point, but I recognize not everyone could afford school or has like a in-person group where they could get these connections. And if that's the case, I highly recommend getting on like Discord, getting on Twitter, getting on any sort of like community where you could have a lot of people seeing your work. That's where a lot of the hiring is happening nowadays. And that's how a lot of people are finding like new talents to get into the industry. Discord is a great way to go about it because it's like a big open forum. There's a lot of channels just related to animation, like specifically if you want to do anime, if you want to do effects, if you want to do concept layout, or just improve in general. It's a great way to get a know of people, and you also don't know who you'll meet. You might meet some really like professional artists who wandered in there and wanted to help like some people, and it's a great way of just getting your foot out the door, and without having a lot of pressure too, because it's all online.
Gotcha.
Yep, that sounds about right. School was the best help for me personally, just because I work with these people, constantly, and I still keep in touch with a lot of the professors that I know, especially the ones that work in the industry. Sometimes they would say, "Hey, this studio is hiring, send your stuff," and that just becomes easy access. But not everyone has that luxury, so art improvement channels through Discord. There's art communities through people on YouTube who teach, give a lot of art tips. They have their own stuff. And I think, when you make your own work and you post your work to social media, you're going to interact with a lot more people in any event. So just remember to, don't be afraid to reach out to people too, even if it's just a matter of, if you like someone's work, comment on it, share it, and send them a message if you want to ask a question too. You'll find a lot of people are open to that.
All right.
I don't know if I could add to that.
Oh, we're ending soon. Okay. All right. Where can these lovely folks find you people before we end?
Oh.
Go.
Uh-oh.
Nobody wants to talk?
All right.
Quick!
On Instagram, I'm Cam Angelo. You can find a lot of my work there. And I'm Cameron D'Angelo Johnson on LinkedIn. That's most of me.
I'm at Alele's on Instagram, Twitter, anywhere along those lines. That's usually where I go by. Or you could search my name, Alaine Baybayan, and I'm sure you'll find somewhere to reach out to me.
All right.
Oh, me, Dan T at dragonlakeinc.com. And Also, I don't know if I'd be anywhere else. LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn.
All right, fantastic. All right, well, I'm glad that you guys got to speak to us today. Just so our audience knows, we're all Canadian, and this is our world domination plan.
Slowly coming together.
All right.
Yes.
And thank you for joining me today. I'm Austin Harvey. If you want to find me, I'm Saturday Editorial. But yeah, thank you guys so much for joining me today. And thank you so much for answering all these questions.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome.
All right. Beam us out, Scotty.